Welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Sanders, the Dean of the College of Engineering here at Carnegie Mellon. And as you can see from my background today, I'm in Kigali, Rwanda, together with our Faculty Insights speaker, and very happy to be here at CMU-Africa. Before I go to the planned introduction, I just want you all to be aware, if you haven't seen it, that we made a big announcement regarding CMU-Africa last week, Thursday. And that's the announcement of a gift of $275 million of support from the MasterCard Foundation to further our mission and goals here at CMU-Africa. We're thrilled about that announcement, and I just wanted to let you know about it, and very thankful to the MasterCard Foundation for their support. We'll send you a link to a web story about that when we send a follow-up email to you after the webinar. So let me jump right in. In the summer of 2020, the College of Engineering kicked off a webinar series called Faculty Insights, a 20-minute briefing. We're holding this several times each year. In this virtual series, faculty from across the College of Engineering share insights into their research, its impact, and a perspective for the future. Following each 20-minute presentation, attendees have an opportunity to direct questions and comments to the speaker. Our speaker today is Assane Gueye. He joined CMU University of Africa on August 1, 2020. Prior to joining CMU-Africa, he was a faculty member in the ICT department in the university in Senegal, where he also leads the research group, Technologies of Information for the Communications and Development. Assane holds a guest researcher position with the National Institute for Standards and Technology in Maryland in the US. He completed his PhD in electrical and computer sciences from UC Berkeley in March of 2011. He received a master's degree in 2004 in communication systems engineering from the École Polytechnique in Lausanne, Switzerland. His research focuses on two main areas: performance evaluation and security of large-scale communication systems, and information and communication technologies for development. Assane is the fellow of the Next Einstein Forum, class of 2016. Assane, that's a tall order to live up to. In 2019, he was nominated as a member of the European Alliance for Innovation inaugural fellow class. Assane, thank you for being here with me today to share your research and insights. Before I turn things over to Assane, please remember to submit any questions you have via the question and answer feature at the bottom of your screen. You can do this at any point during the program, so go ahead and queue them up while he's speaking. Gina Henry, our Associate Dean for Development here at the College of Engineering, will be moderating the question and answer session with Assane at the conclusion of the presentation. Assane, thanks again, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. It is a great pleasure to be with you today, and I will share some of the works we have been doing here at CMU-Africa. But before that, I would like to thank the organizers of this webinar and the people who join us. This is a great opportunity to engage with the community. And would like to thank the CMU-Africa family who have been supporting me since I joined here in 2020. So as Bill mentioned, so I will be talking a little bit about what we do here, focusing on why I believe we need to do cybersecurity research for Africa. So this is part of the work that we launched with several colleagues, close collaboration between the Pittsburgh campus and the CMU-Africa campus, and initiatives that I co-lead with my colleagues, Julia Fanti, Conrad Tucker, because we are second from Pittsburgh, and here in Kigali, Tim Brown, Gemma, Edwin Cairo, Edith Luhanga, and so on. So why cybersecurity research for and education for Africa? So we are at a moment where the digital transformation of the continent is one of the highest hope that we have to help Africa leapfrog, to go from a developing continent to a developed continent. And in the years before COVID, all signs were showing in the right direction. Increase in penetration, internet penetration, increase in the digital economy, increase in mobile money accounts. So Africa actually is leading the mobile money revolution, increase in the number of people getting into the internet and into the cyberspace. So there are very high hope, and many people believe that the fourth industrial revolution is the one for Africa. We should not miss this one. But as we are seeing that, we are also seeing a rise on cyber attacks in the continent. So these are some examples. Actually, Interpol provided a report last year about attacks that happened in the continent. And these are only documented attacks. So there are many attacks that are happening in the continent that are not actually being accounted for. So then we see that as we are moving to the digital space, as we are adopting new technologies, as we are transforming the continent, we need to make sure that the dream that we have with the fourth industrial revolution will not become a nightmare. And if we don't take care of the security aspect, it will. But security is an issue everywhere in the world. It's not only in Africa. So why? Why do we think that we need to be focusing, having a research and education-oriented, Africa-oriented effort? So Africa has this unique and fragile environment. So let's consider consumers. We have today many people who are getting access to systems, to cyberspace the first time. People who have lived their adult life without never touching a computer. And now they see themselves in the middle of digital operations. So these are people who are not digitally literate. These are people who would go and hand their device to someone, at the same time give them their PIN. Say, oh, this is my PIN, can you help me with this? These are people where they open account, they will go to a corner shop and let the person there, the agent, open the account for them with all the information. So these are people who are also not able to distinguish a scam email to a legitimate one. So they will click when they are asked to do so. So we have people who have not been prepared for the cyberspace, and suddenly they are part of it and they are living in the cyberspace. Protecting them needs some dedication and some special efforts. These people are also using low-cost devices. Devices that are not ready to do, for example, security and cryptography operations that are needed to protect the data and to protect communications. So most of the people in Africa today have feature phones. So how do you protect when people are using very low-cost devices? And beyond the devices, we have, for example, new business model in the continent where, for example, to connect in the internet, I buy a bundle, and that bundle is giving me this much bandwidth for the month. So if I consume it, I'm done. What happened today is that many people are very wary about how that bandwidth is being consumed. So one feature that consumes bandwidth, for example, is automatic updates. Okay? When you have your computer or even your smartphone sometimes, you download updates to protect yourself. But people actually in the continent are paying for that bandwidth, and sometimes that is slowing down their communication. And to save the bandwidth and to also boost their communication, what people do is that they just disable automatic updates so that now they're open for any attacks to come to them. So that's one thing that they do. But another reason why they do it is that many people in the continent know that they use pirated softwares. And if you do your update, sometimes you lose that software. So for that reason also, they disable automatic updates. So how do you protect people where the very technology that is supposed to protect them is being disabled? We have lack of trust in the continent as well. I remember my dad actually he had a debit card, so that the bank handed to him. He really didn't ask for it, but they proposed and he took it. And one day he realized that there was some money that was missing in his account, because every day he would go and ask for the paper report and go through the transaction and see which one did I do, which one did I not. And he realized that there was some transaction in some country in Europe. So that day is the day where he handed back to the bank that card. Okay. So we have also a lack of affordable resources in the continent, but mostly also limited cybersecurity capacity. We have a shortage, a worldwide shortage of cybersecurity experts. But in Africa, even today, we are struggling to get cybersecurity programs going. So this has made Africa a special place, a place that is unique and fragile. As we are transitioning, if we don't stop and make the effort that are needed in terms of education and research, we might be doomed at some point. So that's what motivated us. So what I'm going to do next is to share some of the research activities that we are carrying here in the lab. So the first one is, for example, data sovereignty. So today in many countries, regulators are saying that data has to remain in the country to be better protected for many reasons. I'm not going that route. But what we have done is say, okay, let's test. So I was sitting here in our lab in Kigali, and I say, let me just try to connect to a server that is in Senegal, where I come from. And I trace where the communication is going to. So this is a report of the trace. So to visualize it, this is how it goes. So when I try to connect from Kigali to Dakar, it goes in Ethiopia, then go all the way to Europe, spend some time there and comes back to the continent. This has a lot of implications. Okay? And So the implications are cost. So I pay higher costs because I am going international routes. I incur a larger delay because I'm spending a longer time around the world, but mostly I have security and privacy issues because whenever the traffic goes through a router in some country, they can make a copy and keep it there until they have the intelligence or the capacity, even if it's encrypted, to decrypt it. So this is an issue because we did the study and realized that 60%, more than 60% of the communication between Africans, so between one place in Africa to another, goes around the world before coming back. So how do you take care of that? And we did ask a follow-up question, actually. So say, okay, here we are interested in where the traffic is going, but where is the data we are looking for? So this is a study that we did the last spring, looking at where is the data that we are trying to access from the continent? Where is it hosted? And you see that more in the 3 countries that we checked, and this is very typical, more than 95% of the traffic is being hosted outside the continent. So the data is not in the continent. So how do we protect? How do we talk about data sovereignty when 60% of the traffic goes out and most of the data that we are trying to access is outside? This is an African problem. This is one reason why we believe that we need to be focusing on cybersecurity in the continent and for the continent. So let me try to talk about another project that we are carrying on here in our lab. So I said at the beginning that Africa is leading the mobile money revolution. It is helping a lot of Africans to get access to the financial system, to be included financially. And we know that financial inclusion is one bullet that hits 8 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the UN. But what we have seen with mobile money is also a rise in what we call smishing. So trying to scam people using SMS. Okay. And during COVID, where the world turned to cyber and digital and remote, we have noticed an increase of 300% of attacks that try to scam people through SMS. What happened is that we can detect this scam. For example, your email is trying to filter messages that are trying to scam you, but that's in English or in French. In many countries in Africa, the local languages are being used for mobile money. For example, in Rwanda, many people are using Kenya-Rwanda. In Tanzania, in Kenya, they are using Swahili. And in Ethiopia, they use Amharic. So we do not have the tools to automatically detect those scams in those low resources languages. So this is what motivated what we call the smishing project within cylab-Africa. So basically what we do here is we deploy a set of honeypot. So these are machines or smartphones that are vulnerable to collect data about those scams. And the hope is that once enough data is being collected, we will develop and run machine learning algorithms that will help automatically detect those scams in SMSs when people are using low resource languages. So this is a picture actually of the infrastructure that we have deployed here in the lab. So this is how they look like. It has to be low cost, of course, to be deployed in a large scale. So we have low cost devices that we are using to collect this data in the continent. So, and I will end with these examples. So, related still to the financial inclusion, what have enabled financial inclusion, as I said, is mobile money. So people have access to mobile money. Then what happened in Africa at some point was that people were using that money for money laundering, even for terrorist activities. Then the countries have started to put some regulations. Say that if you have an account, you have to have the SIM card identified to your ID. But what happened is that half of the people in the continent do not have ID. So we excluded half of the people in the continent. Then what people do, well, since they want to still use the system, so I will go and ask my cousin to register my SIM through his name or her name. Then the state starts seeing multiple SIMs registered to one name. Then they start saying, oh, we have to limit. We have to limit the number of SIM cards that people are getting. So what we see here is that technology is coming, regulation is coming, the user are taking actions, and all this is evolving and not getting optimal. So in one of our studies, we are trying to understand the essence of these regulations and how it is impacting the people. So we are running several user studies in different countries to try to understand what are the security issues that are preventing people from being included in the financial systems. Another related study is the role of agents. So bank cannot be everywhere in the continent. I mean, they are in big cities. In rural area, we don't have the bank. They have no incentive to deploy there because the return on investment will be very, very, very low. So what has helped to include people is what we call agents. These are corner shop people who will play some roles of the bank. So these are the people where when my grandma wants to open an account, she will go there, hand her phone, give her ID, give all the information that she needs, and that the person needs to open an account. But what happened is that these agents now are handling gigabytes of personally identifiable information. And recently in the continent, we have seen countries coming with regulation, that the data protection law, that say that if you are handling certain data, you have to protect it in a certain way. But these people did not even have some training to be able to protect the data, or even know that the data that they are handling is private. And they have played a fundamental role in including more people in the financial system. So now we are at this point where we need the regulation, and if these people are required to meet those, they will be going out of market, and that itself will get us back to where we were before. So in this last project I'm showing, we're trying to develop the technology that is needed to help these agents and these end users to do the good job they have been doing to help the system, but at the same time protect the security and the privacy of people. So with that, I will end. I'm sorry I went a little bit over time. So Kay and Gina, back to you.
Assane, thank you so much for such a great presentation. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who is joining us here today to learn from Assane about this important work. We are going to take a few questions now. We've already got some questions that are coming in. But just as a reminder to those of you who are watching this webinar live, please submit your questions through the Q&A box, which should be at the bottom of your screen. And make sure to include your name with your with your question as well, and we'll be answering as many of those as we can get to on this session. So Assane, let's dive right into the questions. So one of the first questions that came in is, what you talked about several projects here. What is the biggest obstacle to rolling out these projects, do you think?
So I think that since we are proposing technology to really impact what the states are doing, what the people are doing, trust is very important. So one of the projects that I did not present is that we were trying to understand the cybersecurity landscape in the continent, trying to understand what are the most prevalent security issues in the continent. And for that, what we did was we proposed security assessment services. So if you are a fintech, and 90% of the fintech in the continent, they deploy without the required security. So if you are a fintech, we offer you a free security assessment that we will do survey, then we will do technical assessment. At the end, we provide a report and recommendation. So we started that project with very high hope that people will jump into it. But what happened is that we struggle to get people enrolled, to get companies, fintechs enrolled because of trust. So, and trust, of course, is very important. So how do you solve that? Of course, we as CMU, we need to be making sure that people are aware of the good things that we can provide, that we are here to help, and then maybe later they can enroll in those programs. Trust also from the government sides, because when you develop solutions for the people, if at the end they are not using it, then unfortunately that solution will not help anyone. So we have a lot of discussions with governments, and they have alternatives. Okay? And so convincing them that we are providing the right solution has been a challenge. And the trust is certainly one of the biggest obstacles that we have. Another one is, of course, now skills. Yeah? Skills in the continent. So we are trying to solve problems with the best solution possible, because we don't want to be offering to the continent medium style solutions, because that will hurt us in the at the end. So, but getting that pool of very skilled students is difficult, and that has to start from actually early, where students are trained with needed skills, so that when they arrive at the university, they have already built that background that is needed actually to go one step further. Getting that skill, those skills, has also been a struggle for us. So many of them, but I will stop in those two, and maybe we can move to the next question, Gina.
Very good, Assane. Thank you. I'm sure we could both talk quite a long time about this. So switching gears a little bit, what are you most excited about with this work in the coming years? What gets you most excited about what we're doing?
So we are here in Kigali, setting up what we call the Digital Public Good Labs, where we are trying to propose solutions for the people, solutions that will help the continent. So I'm very excited with the opportunity and the potential to be making an impact by developing solutions that will help people get out of poverty, that will help the woman in our villages, that will give to those kids in rural areas. I didn't present one of the projects where we work on connectivity in rural areas. And once you have the connectivity, I mean, interconnection has enabled the world. And we are enjoying it now, but there are many people who do not have that opportunity to get connected even with villages around them. So I'm very excited with the potentiality to help those people get out of where they are now and see their life getting better. That's really what drives me today in Kigali.
That's wonderful. And that's what many of us find inspiring about the work as well. Sort of a related question, and a larger question, which is, we're talking here about Africa as a continent, but Africa is not one place necessarily. It's a composition of more than 50 countries, and so many of them have different languages and different laws and sometimes conflicting interests. So how do we address that when we're talking about Africa as a continent?
And it's very interesting. So Africa is certainly 50 plus countries with different many things, okay, different regulation, different languages, and so on. But what is clear is no single country will be able to pull this off by themselves. So if we want to develop the continent, we have to do it as a continent and working together. So how do you do it? So what we have seen happening is, for example, regional blocks that are being formed in the continent. Even in the cybersecurity space, we see today some efforts to create regional cybersecurity centers to oversee for several countries. And that has a lot of values. No single country has the skills that they need to protect themselves. So we better join efforts so that we can leverage on each other. So it's definitely true that we are 50 plus countries, but it is even more true that no single country will be able to pull this off by themselves. So I think that there is a good understanding in the continent that this has to be done as at an African level. And that's what we see. And that's even what CMU actually is trying to do by creating, for example, today with the AfriTech network, which is a network of universities that are working together to help the digital transformation of the continent. Because we bring something on the table, but others also bring something on the table, and alone we won't be able to do. We are graduating maybe 400 people. That's not what's going to solve the problem in the continent. So joining effort is key, and I think that it's very well understood in the continent. Gina.
Wow, great. Thank you for that response. So we've talked a lot about sort of technologies, but you've also talked a little bit about the human part of this. So how do we balance the technology versus the human training that's needed for cybersecurity in the continent?
Yeah. So as I said, so the human is the center. So we are doing this for the human. So we are building the technology for the human. So, and that aspect needs to be taken into account on several levels. When you design the technology itself, if it's not designed for the people, they won't be using it. I mean, in the ICT for development world, we have had that issues where I was in Berkeley, we were sitting in our lab and we would think of a very cool problem and we invent the problem and we solve it. And we go to a village and we implement, we deploy it. People are happy, we take pictures and videos, and a week after or 2 weeks after the project goes down. So people have to be at the center of all this. So of course I presented examples where we were focusing on the technology, but as the big component of our work is focusing on the people. And that aspect of designing for the people, making sure that people are integrated into the design is one, but also training people. People have to gain the knowledge that is needed for all this to be sustainable. We cannot be banking again on people coming into the continent to do things for us. We have to be able to do it for ourselves. So part of what we are doing actually in our lab and within CMU-Africa is to boost capacity building. So we were trying to boost capacity building this year in collaboration with Pittsburgh, with PICO CTF. It's a cybersecurity competition where we have a training period where we have tried to get 1,000 people from the continent into a platform to train on cybersecurity skills and then compete. The competition for me was just a proxy. What was important and interesting for me was people to get into that training platform and gain interest and skills. So yes, I have talked about technology, but people have to be at the center of what we are doing. If not, then as someone said, if you don't design for the people, they won't use it. And if the technology is not being used by the people, it's not going to help them. So very important component and at the center of what we do here, the people. Gina.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have questions coming in fast and furious here, and I'll just remind our viewers that if you do have questions for Assane, we have a few minutes more left where you can get your questions in just by submitting them at the bottom of the screen with the Q&A box. Next up, Assane, you've talked a little bit about this, but can you talk a little bit more about how students, we have well over 300 students there, but how are the students involved in this work?
So of course, the drivers of the work we do here are the students. So we have a number of students involved in all the project, and actually I like to share what we did in February and March, where we were training people around the continent on cybersecurity. And recently we did a training of refugee camp teachers on cybersecurity and ICT. And all those training were led by CMU-Africa students. We closely collaborate, for example, with the cybersecurity club, the Women in Tech club, the software engineering club, and they were really the drivers of those. And they get involved also in what happened after. So the students take the ideas that we develop here to create companies. We have had a number of companies that were created by CMU-Africa students and taking the technology to the people. So they are the center of what we do. And actually they are the drivers of what we do also.
Very good, thank you. You mentioned data hosting a little earlier. What do you think is a realistic fraction of data that could be hosted in the continent, such as data that's intrinsic to the continent, like bank data that you talked about, rather than things that are not coming from Africa, like maybe movies or music or something like that?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say a fraction, but maybe the type of data that has to be hosted in the continent. For example, I mean, some know of countries who have outsourced their election system and their identity system. I do believe that that information has to be hosted, actually, at least locally, or I'm not a believer that everything needs to be hosted locally, but even if it's hosted remotely, it has to have certain security guarantees. So, but there are data that naturally is going out. I mean, email, Google servers are not in Africa, all of them. Okay, so and that data is certainly not sensitive enough to require that it is hosted within the continent. So what needs to be to happen is that we have to have people who understand the risks, people who can assess the needs, and who can also assess the solutions that are being proposed to see what solution works well with what needs. Because what is happening now on the continent, unfortunately, is that especially the countries, they go with what vendors tell them. And those are the only games on the table. Vendors, they come, they sell you a product. And of course, everything that they tell you is for you to buy the product. So, and that's why we believe that academia needs to step up and be that neutral party to help African governments also first develop the skills they need to make the right decision, but also assess and give neutral opinion on the technology that are being proposed for the continent. Jim.
Good. I think we have time for one more question. We had a question submitted saying this might be a little bit too early for the research that we're doing, but looking forward to a distributed energy resource environment, are you also looking at security of things like remote controlled thermostats, EV charging, storage, etc., on the consumer side of things?
So that's a very interesting question that we have been talking with our colleagues actually here who works on energy. For example, today in the continent, there is this development of prepaid energy. So basically, you have a box and you buy energy and you punch a number, and that gives you whatever you have bought. Those devices, I believe, needs to be looked at. So those are not remote thermostat. We don't have those much in the continent, but those are systems, in the power grid that needs to be looked at. And beyond that, this interconnection between the different systems, between the power grid, the communication system, the water distribution system is happening everywhere, and it is happening in Africa. And the risk that we see there is cascading failure. And we have seen that. We have seen cases where water is missing because there was a power outage, and then the internet also gets down because of the power outage. So we need to understand that interconnection and find solutions. So no specific research on remote thermostat and so on, but definitely interest in other aspects that connects those different networks or systems, such as the power grid, the communication network, the water distribution network, the financial system, and so on. Gina.
Thank you so much, Assane. This has been a great, thought-provoking and informative program. I know I learned a couple of things, so I hope that our viewers did as well. And I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to present to us and to share your research with us. We very much appreciate it. I would also like to thank the audience for participating today, and I hope that you'll be able to join us at future Faculty Insights programs. Please keep an eye on your email for follow-up to this session, as well as invitations to future sessions. So thank you again, Assane, and thank you to everyone who joined us here today.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.